All right, guys, commentaries of the Gallic War. Commentaries on the Gallic War. This one is number 31. It's pretty long, about 7 minutes. When that assembly was dismissed, the same chiefs of states who had before been to Caesar returned and asked that they might be allowed to treat with him privately in secret concerning the safety of themselves and of all. That request having been obtained, they all threw themselves in the tears at Caesar's feet, saying that they no less begged and earnestly desired that what they might say should not be disclosed, and that they might obtain those things which they wished for, inasmuch as they saw that, if a disclosure were made, they should be put to the greatest tortures. For these Davidicus the Aeduan spoke and told him that there were two parties in the whole of Gaul, that the Aedui stood at the head of one of these, the Arverni of the other. After these had been violently struggling with one another for the superiority for many years, it came to pass that the Germans were called in for hire by the Arverni and the Sequani. Also the Averni, so the Averni are fighting with the Aedui, but the Averni are actually using like a mercenary army, which is the Germans, to help them. It's like a civil war. And that about 15,000 of the Germans had at first crossed the Rhine, but after that these wild and savage men had become enamored of the lands and the refinement and the abundance of the Gauls. More were brought over, that there were now as many as 120,000 of them in Gaul. That which these the Aedui and their dependents had repeatedly struggled in arms, that they had been routed and had sustained a great calamity, had lost all their nobility, all their senate, all their cavalry, and that broken by such engagements and calamities, although they had formerly been very powerful in Gaul, both from their own valor and from the Roman people's hospitality and friendship, they were now compelled to give the chief nobles of their state as hostages to the Sequani, and to bind their state by an oath, that they would neither demand hostages in return nor supplicate aid from the Roman people, nor refuse to be forever under their sway and empire. That he was the only one out of all the state of the Aedui who could not be prevented upon to take the oath or to give his children as hostages. On that account he had fled from his state and had gone to the Senate at Rome to beseech aid, as he alone was bound neither by oath nor hostages. But a worse thing had befallen the victorious Sequani than the vanquished Aedui. For Ariovistus, the king of the Germans, had settled in their territories and had seized upon a third of their land, which was the best in the whole of Gaul, and was now ordering them to depart from another third part, because a few months previously 24,000 men of the Herudes had come to him, for whom room and settlements must be provided. The consequence would be that in a few years they would all be driven from the territories of Gaul, and all the Germans would cross the Rhine, for neither must the land of Gaul be compared with the land of Germans, nor must the habit of living of the latter be put on a level with that of the former. Moreover, as for Ariovistus, no sooner did he defeat the forces of the Gauls in a battle which took place at Mage Torbria, than he began to lord it haughtily and cruelly, to demand as hostages the children of all the principal nobles, and wreak on them every kind of cruelty if everything was not done at his nod or pleasure. That he was a savage, passionate, and reckless man, and that his commands could no longer be borne. So this king of the Germans is trying to take over Gaul. Unless there was some aid in Caesar and the Roman people, the Gauls must all do the same thing that the Helvetii had done, viz., emigrate from their country. And seek another dwelling place, other settlements remote from the Germans, and try whatever fortune may fall to their lot. If these things were to be disclosed to Ariovistus, Davidicus adds that he doubts not that he would inflict the most severe punishment on all the hostages who are in his possession, and says that Caesar could, either by his own influence and by that of his army, or by his late victory, or by name of the Roman people, intimidate him so as to prevent a greater number of Germans being brought over the Rhine, and could protect all Gaul from the outrages of Ariovistus. It's fascinating. Germans taking over Gaul. But look, it all started from division within that country, right? It's even right here in the beginning. That there were two parties in the whole of Gaul, the Aedui and the Arverni. But the Arverni, the Germans were called in for hire by the Arverni and the Sequani. But they're stupid. German mercenaries. You're giving up too much power to a neighboring country that was opportunistic, right? And once you're like, hey, we don't need your help anymore. Like, what? We helped you establish power here. What do you mean you're going to get rid of us? Like, what? What are you talking about? You know? It's very interesting. You think about, America when they kind of took over Iraq for about 20 years. Or Afghanistan. Was that Iraq? No, it took over Afghanistan for about 20 years and then they leave, right? It's kind of like they weren't really trying to like why leave? Might as well just stay there, right? Why leave? I don't know. I guess they were like they look silly doing a good thing, right? Like finally leaving, but they didn't do it the right way. I don't know. I had an idea right here, but this is fascinating right here. Machiavelli the Prince talks about using mercenary armies, using other person's armies to try to help your country. And look at when you do that, and the Machiavelli the Prince, he talks about the best you do is create your own an army from your own people. That's what he says, and this is very fascinating here. Very fascinating. Very fascinating here. This is the commentaries on the Gallic War, number 31.